Hi, I'm Mike Papantonio, and this is America's Lawyer. Ron DeSantis could end up being sued by high school students for blocking an AP African American Studies class. We'll explain why the move to block the class could hurt DeSantis in his political runs. DirecTV, well, they dumped the conservative news channel Newsmax, and now they could face the wrath of Congress. And Democrats in Massachusetts want prison inmates to give up their internal organs in exchange for reduced sentences. It's all coming up right here. Don't go anywhere. Right here on America's Lawyer. Ron DeSantis' culture wars might be winning in Florida, but he may fall flat if he runs for president. Ring of Fire's Farron Cousins joins me to talk about this. Farron, you know, we both, I think, land in the same place here. This is just a remake of the Lee Atwater, Donald Segretti, Ronald Reagan, Bush 1 culture wars, right? I mean, this is just like, I mean, what he's doing is to convey the same thing that Ronald Reagan conveyed when he launched his president's run in Philadelphia, Mississippi. They were so backwoods and so out of it. I mean, just absolute racist center that they didn't even join the Confederacy. They didn't think the Confederacy was extreme enough for them.
Yeah, and you know, for a big Hollywood guy like Reagan to come in and pick this small Mississippi town to do it, it was very calculated. Mm-hmm. And DeSantis, I think, is, you know, he's not a stupid guy by any stretch.
No, he's not.
He's dangerously smart.
Yeah.
And he's kind of taken that same thing and brought it to modern times. And recently, of course, with the blocking of the AP African American Studies course, he's kind of put it on steroids to the point where, one, he's likely to end up sued. You've got, you know, legendary civil rights lawyer Benjamin Crump working on this.
And he'll win this suit.
Yeah.
I mean, there's already precedent to win this lawsuit.
There is. And so he faces that trouble. The problem is, even if they win that lawsuit, the public's not going to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
It will be that DeSantis did it, that he got his initial victory. And the people in this state, and I cannot stress this enough, the people in Florida love him.
Well, they absolutely do. As a matter of fact, people are moving to Florida.
Yeah.
I saw a number where it was like, just like a fraction of a percentage of people moving to Florida are registering Democrat.
We've had, I think, like almost 1 million Republicans move to Florida in the last 4 years is what I've seen.
Well, they're coming out of the big cities. They're confronted with dysfunction in the big cities in their mind. And obviously it is. There's some reason they're coming here. They like the idea of DeSantis' culture war, whether it's, you know, people may look at it and say, that idiot. You know, what a stupid thing to do. What does he know? He knows it worked for Ronald Reagan. Yeah. He knows it worked for George Bush 1. You remember the welfare queen thing?
Yep.
That was an extension of Lee Atwater's and Donald Segretti's idea to turn the country up on its head in culture wars. And that division is happening right now in this country, stronger probably than it's ever been. But I mean, the obvious is there's absolutely zero justification for saying that an AP course on African American history can't be taught. You can go around it 1,000 ways and say why. You know, is next it's going to be women's studies? We can't have a course on women's studies. We can't have a course on Native American studies. I mean, this is where this goes if you really land it. Look, Crump is a very good friend of mine, okay? He's a good lawyer. He understands his chances of winning this are very, very high. So I think that's where it's going to land. But for people to say, oh, he's an idiot, they're the idiot if they don't understand what this guy's up to. It's one thing to call names and say, what an idiot, but if you don't analyze what's really happening, you might be the idiot.
Well, see, and that's, I think, a big problem, not just here in Florida, but just all over the country with politics in general, is you got your folks up in New York that do their cable news show. You got the folks in D.C. on the Insider Beltway. They look at this guy and they say, wow, he's an idiot. Florida, y'all are idiots. Yeah. But you come down here, actually travel through these red states. Yes. I travel through them all the time. I was just in Tennessee.
Yes.
They love this. And that is what the people in these mindsets of I'm the professional Politico.
I know.
Y'all don't understand it because you're not seeing it every day like we do.
We get it on a comment page. People say, they'll look at this, well, he's a loser, he's an idiot. Because they don't take the time. They don't know the history. Most people don't know the history of Lee Atwater.
Yeah.
They don't know the history of Donald Segretti and Richard Nixon and how he put these folks together to do these cultural dirty tricks. And then Ronald Reagan wins for president. George Bush wins for president, solely based on the type of culture war that he's trying to promote here. A court has ruled that Johnson & Johnson can't hide behind bankruptcy to avoid the lawsuits, to avoid being responsible. This company, look, they've known, let's see, for 4 decades that their product was causing cancer in women. And they knew the exact mechanics of how it was causing cancer. Wasn't any guesswork. Their lab studies showed it. Pick it up from there.
Yeah, they would go in their own studies and take the tumors out of the women who they were marketing these products to and find their own fibers that they could trace back. They knew it was their stuff. They knew what it was causing. They knew asbestos was in some of these. They knew 100% for many, many decades, told no one, and actually moved into a more aggressive marketing approach with it, going to predominantly minority communities, advertising this product as, hey, you don't have time to take a shower, toss on the baby powder. I mean, I've gone through just like you have. We've seen the advertising documents.
Yeah, it was a cultural issue.
Yeah.
They knew that their marketing was primarily for African American women. For whatever reason, that was passed on generation to generation. So they didn't want to change the formulation, which all they had to do was put something in there besides what they were putting in there to kill people. They didn't even need that thing to kill people. But they kept it on the market only because they invested so much into the branding of the market. And the documents show that. I mean, there was no problem fixing the problem. They knew they could do it. But what I find interesting about this, first of all, they go into bankruptcy. It's a $140 billion company, okay? Thank God we had good judges that reviewed that and said, really? I mean, you're really coming to us and saying you have to declare bankruptcy with $140 billion. And the judges that wrote that opinion are brilliant. I'm telling you, it was one of the best written opinions. I mean, it was so smart the way they approached it. Basically saying, have we just left our common sense at the door here? And so this judge, the judge that agreed to accept this was humiliated. I mean, absolutely humiliated.
Was it New Jersey, the judge, the original one was from?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think it's an important decision. One thing it does is we see all of these companies trying to move there. They're all trying to say, well, we have to declare bankruptcy. I think the next one we were going to hear about was 3M, okay? 3M has caused so much suffering in this country with PFAS, with the hearing loss cases for servicemen. We were getting ready to see them make the same move. Let me tell you this opinion written by these brilliant, absolutely brilliant judges, I think it put a stop to it. So
yeah, and what people have to understand is that these major corporations, what they'll do is they create a new business entity and they'll spin off this, the bad product to the new entity that has zero money.
Yeah.
So they'll say, no, we don't own the talcum powder. That's owned by, Johnson & Johnson and Johnson. Yeah. And then the judge will say, okay, well, clearly they have no money, so all the liability pool, there's no money to pull from.
Let me segue into a story you know about because we did this story. There's this woman out there. Her name is Suzanne Spalding, okay? She comes from Homeland Security, Cybersecurity, CIA. Corporate America has grabbed her, okay? What they've done now is they're out talking about the idea of how dangerous it is to be critical of the justice system or the judiciary. Matter of fact, I've been under personal attack by this woman because we did a story on her. We uncovered the fact that she's so connected to corporate America. It's just a scam. She shows up at judges and lawyers conferences and talks about the idea how dangerous it is to talk about judges. We looked at the cases, the stories we've done. It's more than 95% of the time we're talking about good job, like this case. Good job. But what's happening, and I think it's important to viewers because they're going to see some of this. It used to be 15 or 20 years ago, the Chamber of Commerce, who she's an extension of, or Associated Industry, who she's an extension of, used to go around and they would talk to the public about how bad trial lawyers were. They're trying to keep verdicts down. Now the new thing, let's convince judges that these lawyers are bad. So we're on to this. As a matter of fact, there's going to be a cover story magazine, a cover story in National Trial Lawyer magazine about her. And we're going to tell this story more and more. But in this situation, how can you say anything but say these judges did a wonderful job? Yeah. I mean, they're brilliant. And if you're an attorney reading their opinion, you see how critically smart they are. It's amazing to me. I always love to see that. And we see it in this case for sure. Republicans in Congress are calling for investigations after DirecTV dumped Newsmax. I think you and I will agree on this. I hope we do. We haven't talked about this. Newsmax is a hack organization, no question. The thing that bothers me, where have we gotten that we can't allow just this free speech? Where have we gotten to where, look, if you watch Newsmax, in 10 minutes you can see, I know what they're about. And if it doesn't fit, change the station. But to have DirecTV because the government asked them to do this. You understand, they didn't just do this on their own. They did this under heavy pressure from the government. It's nothing but governmental censorship.
See, I take it a different approach. I look at it if you look at it from the business standpoint, what happened here, according to AT&T, and I do think, and I've said this, AT&T should release the negotiations, the documents. Yeah. Let's see who's telling the truth here. But AT&T says, listen, we gave Newsmax a sweetheart deal back in 2012 to join our lineup. We basically created them. So now it's time to renew the contract, and they want us to pay them all of this money, which we'd probably do, except for the fact Newsmax puts all of their content out there on the internet for free, 100% of it.
Okay.
So why would we have to pay you for this when you're already, why buy the cow when you're getting the milk for free? Yeah. But then too, on the issue of, were they pressured to do this? 3 days after this happened, they had a new right-wing news organization that took that same spot, and it's one featuring the headliner Bill O'Reilly.
Okay, well, great. Look, okay, so thanks for that info.
That story got totally overlooked.
I did not know that part of the story. I'm encouraged by that because not that's Bill O'Reilly. I used to go on Bill O'Reilly. But the point is, you get it. I mean, you can't have government or you can't have industry censoring anything unless it's just so untoward that you just say we can't allow for it.
Yeah.
That's good news to me. Thank you for correcting me on that.
Well, no problem. But like I said, if DirecTV is saying one thing, Newsmax is saying another, there's emails, there's documents. Somebody put them out there. At least let us know who's telling the truth and who's not. Because if DirecTV is lying, then you do have a problem. But if DirecTV is right that, they wanted exorbitant sums of money when they're giving it away for free, then there's no point in it. We'll just go to this new fledgling network, which is what AT&T, DirecTV did with One America as well. They got dropped last year, but AT&T had given them millions of dollars to start up.
It does look bad on its surface, unless you know the facts that you just told us. It looks bad. And I'm glad you told me that. I did not know those facts. Thank you for that. New studies have shown executions in Saudi Arabia have risen 80% under MBS. There's a reason for MBS. Okay, look, this is a horrendous story. You have the Saudis right now under the leadership of this nutcase. I mean, the guy's a nutcase. An increase of 80% of executions, but let's talk about what it's for. Big portion of that is for political dissent, okay? We know this. We know there's no question that same family was responsible for 9/11. That discussion's over. We know that. We know we gave them a free pass on that. We gave them a free pass on Khashoggi. We gave them a free pass time after they've just flippantly looked in our face and said, no, hell with you on the oil issue. At what point do we say, God, this ain't our friend here?
Right. And I don't know that we hit that point unless we had maybe a Bernie Sanders type in office, but Biden talked a big game about it, said, I'm going to make them a pariah.
I know.
And instead he ends up over there begging them, please lower the oil costs. And they said, no, in fact, we're going to cut production and raise the oil prices. But they are murdering people for tweeting negative things about Saudi Arabia. They're murdering people for protesting that we think women should not be hidden from society. They're treating these people exactly as if it was somebody who went out and killed 10 people in the street for no reason. They don't see a difference in those two crimes.
No.
And the justification is insane because MBS has said, like, well, listen, back in the 80s, Osama bin Laden was considered just, a anti-government, protester, and then he turned out to be the world's worst terrorist. Well, you can't just preemptively murder people for tweeting because you think 30 years from now they're going to be the next bin Laden.
Let me tell you the people they really hate, this family. They really hate the dissenters who ask the obvious question. How did your family, this Saudi family, get control of all of our oil? How is it that this Saudi family, totally unelected, there's been who put them in charge? You see, isn't that the obvious question? I've been over there, and when you ask that question, you say, well, I don't know. The response is, of course, they're terrified to talk to you, but the answer is, well, I don't know. Who the hell put them in charge? Those are the dissenters that are really getting their heads hacked off. And so that's come back around. People are asking that question now. The reason they participate with the terrorists as they do, because they're so worried about the population. They're worried about the population and the clerics turning against them. So they promote, they do it secretly. They hand out money secretly. We're handling those cases, as you know. Our law firm is handling all of those cases dealing with terrorism and their connection to the Saudis. And but when somebody asks the question, maybe somebody watching this can figure it out. Who in the hell said, yes, Mr. Whatever, you're in charge now. Your family's been in charge. The British and the Americans put them in that seat without there was no predicate for anything. But since then, this is how they run things.
And we're selling them the weapons that they're using. There are good, best buddies across the globe, and then we just look the other way when it's time for them to haul 100 people out there and chop their heads off in the public square.
Something really bothered me about this story when you go back and looked at it, is Jack Dorsey knew that they were spying on the folks that were objecting, They were dissenters. Jack Dorsey knew they were spying on them through Twitter when he was in charge.
They had an informant working there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's disgusting, and people died because of that. Just total not caring about it.
It would be one thing if he said, "Well, how could I have known?" He knew. He knew that was a vehicle that they were targeting the dissenters, Twitter, while Jack Dorsey was involved.
Sending them their location. I mean, truly evil stuff.
Yeah. Lawyers are begging the Biden administration to finally take Cuba off the state sponsor of terrorism list and put an end to the Cold War. This has been going on a long time. To preface it, look, these folks that are so dead set against us opening our doors to Cuba, I understand it a little bit. That Batista, before Fidel took over, was a terrible dictator. I mean, awful, murder. He was in with the mob. They had prostitution. They had drugs. It was like the sin capital of the world. But he built all that for himself because they kept propping him up, and all that U.S. money kept propping him up. So Batista, when he fell, a lot of the people lost everything. I mean, the people that came to the U.S. as refugees, they lost their homes, they lost their property, they lost their profession, they lost their businesses, sometimes 4 generations of business. So you understand why that stays with them. Yeah. They're in Miami primarily and South Florida. But I get it. It's something to be angry about. But take it to the larger scale analysis, if you would.
Yeah, we're so many decades removed from all of that we're now looking at a Cuba that is different. Yes, it's still a socialist country. It still has plenty of problems. But they also have plenty of advancements that we in the U.S. do not have. You know, you and I have sat here and talked about multiple things. One, the fact that for many years now, Cuba has a lung cancer vaccine.
Yeah.
It is illegal for a person in the United States to go down to Cuba and get this vaccine. Vaccine is exceptionally effective as well. They're in
Alzheimer's. Did you do a story on Alzheimer's?
Yeah, it's either the stage 3 or stage 4 final trials that have shown remarkable reversing of Alzheimer's. All of these major medical advancements happening down there in Cuba, in spite of the fact that we continue to starve them. I mean, literally starve them, not just of cash, but of resources. And they're still plugging along, doing good things. Again, not perfect by any stretch, but nobody is. But they're not terrorists. They're not terrorists.
I have never seen such resourceful people, if you want to know the truth. I've been down there. It's just they're just so resourceful. They'll take a car that's, my God, 80 years old, keep it running. They'll take electric equipment, electronics, and keep it running. But the interesting thing is, how has this medical and scientific area for them developed as it has? It's a mystery to me. Yeah. You know, because there's no chance of a Cuban coming over to the U.S. and being educated in one of our elite schools, but they're the most resilient people I've ever seen. So it is that balancing act. Again, if you were a family member and your entire business had been taken away, your land had been taken away, had been confiscated, your uncles were shot, your relatives were shot for resisting Fidel, it's not easy to get over that. And so I guess that's kind of the balance on this story.
And you understand it on the personal level for these individuals, but at the same time, for our government in 2023 to still be operating as if we were in 1963, this makes no sense. We're 60 years past the Cold War.
Obama opened it, as you know. Obama, he did open it, and that idiot Pompeo and Trump came in and closed it because...
So, yeah, we had like a year...
Why? Because they're idiots, you know. Okay, Democrats in Massachusetts have a proposal for prison inmates. That is, give up your internal organs. Give us your liver, give us whatever you can give us. Give us your bone marrow, and we're going to reduce your sentence. Wow. Wow. Okay, look, first of all, they reduced their sentence between 60 days in a year, right? I guess it's what you give up. You give up your lungs, we're going to give you, that'll be 30 days. You know, I don't know. It's a crazy story. It seems like a public health story too, doesn't it? I mean, with the chance of HIV and hepatitis and... I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't sound like it's kosher, but go ahead.
Well, and it's very disturbing, too, that this story is not more widespread because this is a big thing. It is a real piece of legislation that the Democratic-controlled legislature in Massachusetts has put forward. And they say, we're going to help out the poor prisoners. We're going to help out the population. All you got to do is, hey, you got 2 years left on your sentence. Give us your kidney, and you're down to 1 year. I mean, the board, the national board that oversees organ transplants here in the United States is basically begging Massachusetts, please, for the love of God, don't do this. This is dangerous and stupid. We don't want your prison organs, and you can't coerce people like this to give it up.
Well, people can give them up anyway, but the idea of, isn't there's a law that says you can't give up one of your organs in exchange for compensation. Yeah. Well, I think it's a hell of a compensation when you say, hey, give me your right kidney and we're gonna reduce your sentence by a year. And it's such a moving target that I wonder whether it's ever going to be held constitutional. I found an article was related to it. This is done by The Lever. You love this news site, don't you?
I really
Lever.
do. One of my favorites.
Okay, so it says in 1942, a professor at Harvard Medical School injected 64 Massachusetts prisoners with cow's blood. To see can they live on cow's blood? And the point is, sometimes with this type of science, we get ahead of ourselves. This cat at Harvard, he got way ahead of himself and killed 64 prisoners to see if they could live with cow's blood.
Yeah, I think the moral of the story is don't go to jail in Massachusetts because you're gonna have some bad medical.
Or else have some extra organs if you do. A new poll found that more Americans would be unhappy if Biden wins in 2024 than Trump. Why don't you take this story? This story's all over the place. I mean, it really is. And that's always the reason that I'm very hesitant where it comes to polls and
Right.
because it's usually a mess.
Well, see, for me, it's not about the poll; it's about the trend.
Yeah,
and
okay.
that's what we're starting to see right now with these guys here. Is a majority of people, poll after poll after poll, say we don't want either of them.
Yeah.
But this one, this little interesting tidbit of it says more people would be mad if Biden won than if Trump won. So we see all this Trump hate. You know, I talk about it all the time. We see it in the corporate media. We're even seeing it from Fox News now.
Yeah.
But when you start asking people, he has been away long enough, just like when George W. Bush left, historically low on disapproval. Then it starts creeping back up. People have a very short-term memory, and they start to forgive and forget. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that with Trump right now.
The analysis to me is I don't get it because anybody that's paying any attention understands that when Trump showed up on the political scene, it started a divide in America like I have never seen. I have never seen such a divide. The divide is so bad that we talk about tribalism all the time because it's killing this country. It made tribalism, put it on steroids. For example, if we do a story on Biden, no matter whether it's legitimate, whether we're saying this is a problem, you got to listen to this problem. The polarity says, oh God, let's attack those guys for that. It didn't really used to be like that. Now think about this. We have been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
I'd say in the last 5 years, I call it dull brain thinking. And we've seen more dull brain thinking by the folks they're cornered. I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. That's what Trump brought to this, you see. And so it surprises me that the American public doesn't see between those two, Trump's the guy they need to be most concerned about because all it does continues that divide. Now, Biden's not helping it a lot. Everything coming out of his mouth does not help that divide. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm surprised by the numbers. Talk about the numbers a little bit.
I really am too, because what we've got here is, 56% say they would react negatively if Trump wins. 62% say I'm going to react negatively if Biden wins.
And that alone tells you what is it they don't understand how dangerous how dangerous Trump was and how he divided this country.
Well, you've also got, this is kind of an extension of more polling. 38% of Democrats now say, only 38% say I want Biden to be the nominee. 2 weeks ago, that was 58%.
Really?
So
what happened?
That's the thing is I don't understand what happened in 2 weeks. So that's why I say we got to look at the trends. But it's so weird what is happening. But overall, the public, left, right, center, everybody agrees. Anybody but these two guys in 2024.
I'm so tired of it. I'm tired of all the Trump hate. I'm tired of the Republican hate. I'm tired of the cancel culture that's developed around Biden and Democrats. I'm tired of that division. It's very specific. And I don't know, man. I just think you got to get both these cats out of the picture before anything happens. Who's your pick?
I would love to see Katie Porter.
Katie Porter would be mine too. I love this woman.
She is wonderful.
Yeah. All right, Farron, thanks for joining me, okay?
Thank you.
That's all for this week, but all these segments are going to be available this coming week right here on this channel, and you can follow us on Twitter at America's Lawyer. I'm Mike Papantonio, and this has been America's Lawyer, where every week we tell you stories that corporate media won't tell you. They can't tell you because their advertisers won't let them or their political connections simply don't allow for it. We'll see you next time.